Start. Hey everyone, welcome to our CSW Success Stories conversation. Today we have our founder and CEO, Ken Fee, with us, as well as Chris Woodard. Been getting to know Chris a little bit more. Awesome. Cisco's regional manager for secure workload and analytics. Today we're going to be discussing the process and key success factors for a rapid deployment of CSW into production. We're also going to be taking live questions from the audience during the event. So please drop them in the chat for answers at the end. Ken, I'll hand it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Jen. Chris, really appreciate you coming on. We've worked together for many years, more than we should probably acknowledge.
But yeah, I think we should just say we know each other pretty well. And
thanks
for having me. Thank you.
No, and we really value this partnership that we have with Cisco and you and your team around secure workload and the things we've doing. We do a lot of proof of value work for Cisco, obviously, and wanted to have this conversation with you about where are you seeing customer success stories? What's really driving that customer success? And just want to have a conversation. Actually, we've got some questions that we've teed up, and I'm going to have Jen ask us some questions. I just want to have a conversation. That's our goal today. Is just have a conversation about what's it take to deliver some business value.
Yeah, absolutely. So my first question for you is, have you seen any particular industry adopt CSW over any other?
I would, from my perspective, what I'm seeing is a lot of healthcare, a lot of insurance, some manufacturing. Everybody's really concerned. It's I don't want to say it's any one industry, but those are probably our top 3 or 4. Chris, what kind of customers are you seeing outside of those?
We're seeing the same, Ken. I mean, that's where it really started with these highly compliant type of clients, insurance, finance. I mean, we have a lot of those customers that we've done together, but we've even seen customers, like you said, manufacturing, agriculture, really any industry, and especially with the proliferation of people putting their apps, or at least pieces and parts of their apps, out in the public cloud. So that ability to secure what you need to secure, i.e. your apps, the crown jewels of your environment, no matter where you are, whether it's on-prem or in any public cloud. So the ability to have that flexibility is something that is really driving people to look at this type of solution, is what we're saying. And once again, certainly highly compliant industries, that's where everybody starts. But then at the end of the day, if you have those applications out in the cloud, especially, but even on-prem, you've got to be able to secure them from the inside out and do things that we call such as micro-segmentation, which has been a hot button out there for a while, yet a lot of people have struggled to get there. And you and I have gotten a lot of customers there together, and that's something we can do as we continue
definitely. Cool.
Yeah. So speaking to we usually keep the questions till the end, but somebody just chimed in and said banks ? So yep, financial, definitely. Can we speak to that a little more?
Absolutely. I mean, Ken, I'll throw something out there and then let you talk about your experience. But those were some of the first clients that we had. And it's even back when most folks had their stuff on-prem. Once again, the proliferation of the public cloud has driven more of that. But banks, certainly high compliance requirements, high security requirements. And then really, if you look at the bank, if I look at the financial industry and the insurance industry, across those types of compliance industries, they have a concept of continuous compliance. And that's something that Cisco Secure Workload, along with the services of BTA provides, is a huge strength of the platform and something that people have really gravitated to in banking and in insurance and things like that.
Yeah, it's, that's spot on. In the finance space, it's all about compliance. And, there's always some level of audit. I know a lot of people in the finance space. My brother works at a bank, and talking to him about what his compliance requirements are and how they have to drop some things if an auditor shows up. It might be a Federal Reserve auditor, it might be a cyber insurance auditor, it could be anybody in that finance space. It is very highly regulated. So they really have to have this continuous compliance piece. And that's, I think that's really a strength of CSW, like you were talking about, Chris, is that you've got an auditable trail of what you've allowed and denied into any workload in an environment. And that's huge. That's huge.
It's really powerful. I mean, to your point, right, an auditor walks in your environment and says, hey, you need to prove to me that your test dev has never touched production. Well, you can go back and your veritable, DVR of data that you have stored out there in the cloud on secure workload and say, I can prove to you with 100% accuracy that nothing has escaped this policy that we've created. And we can show you, without a shadow of a doubt, which is very difficult to do if you don't have secure workload, but very easy to do if you do. So instead of, calling 10 people, getting a big, war room together with different groups of people and, we sure who did this and who did that, we simply go in, prove out the data. And I know, Ken, you've done a myriad of different automated reports for a lot of clients that they honestly just run the report and it gives them what they need.
Yeah. And that's the key is, platforms, the platform collects tons of data, uses machine learning, and gives us a lot of great output. But every customer is a little bit different. Sometimes we have to create these custom reports that may not be a natural report that comes out of the dashboard. It's things we get out of the API. And that's really, where we've seen our own internal team excel is our ability to produce the kind of auditable data that customers need to be able to operate and run their business. And, it kind of goes back to what are the business drivers? You talked about continuous compliance. A very common use case we see is policy reuse, and that's mobility to the cloud. It might be taking some policy from CSW and pushing it into a firewall. We can push that directly into a Cisco firewall today. We can also use tools like AlgoSec to take CSW policy and push it to other devices like data center fabrics or even under other vendors' firewalls, because most customers have at least 2 vendors of firewalls, and it's just kind of where it is. But and the reason that we are so all in on what we're doing with CSW, I think, is the scalability and the manageability piece of it. And we've talked about our simple service delivery process on these things for a while, and I always go back to, if you can't repeat something, it's not sustainable.
That's right. Absolutely. And we've seen you guys have such a wide range of services. I believe your tagline is, we meet you where you are, right? Which everybody's had different needs. They're in different clouds and they have different iterations of different applications. And one of the things that's so powerful about secure workload that you've seen and that we've all seen when you do these implementations is everything we see is 100% evidentiary based. And what I mean by that is we're looking at exactly what's going on in full granularity over a period of time, because all applications are seasonal. And also, there's also things like moves, adds, and changes. Hey, what if I want to put this into my CI/CD pipeline? What if I want to, I need to secure, if I look at something like a zero trust policy, a key part of that is my workload of my applications. I need to be secure those from the inside out. Mm-hmm. But I've used the word policy a couple of times. And the reason I do is that really is one of the most powerful things of the platform. I know that you've seen and we've seen and all of our clients have seen that, wow, you can tell me exactly everything's going on down to a single packet of a single flow, but only looking at metadata. We're not looking at payload. We're not looking at PII data. So we're not violating any of these policies from a security, from a compliance standpoint, yet we see everything. And then through the magic of the platform, we kind of joke about that, Ken. I know the machine learning that it does, it gives you the actual policy, which if you've ever, anyone on this call that's tried to do a zero trust implementation, especially in your applications that are so granular, think VMs, containers, etc. If I don't have the right accurate policy, it's not going to work. And furthermore, what if I could really test that policy before I implemented it to see if it was going to break anything? Well, we can actually do that, Ken. I know that's part of one of your, pretty much all of your service deployments.
Yeah,
is that's the thing before we break something.
Yeah, that's the last step before we go to enforcement is we actually run a simulation. Generally, we run a simulation for about a week. And determine what's, is that policy going to meet the need? Are there any undocumented policies or that need to be deployed? And a lot of times, it's how do you optimize that policy? Because, depending on the number of agents a customer has on their host, they may be communicating on a bunch of ports that the app developers never knew that, a backup agent or some kind of software distribution agent was talking the way that it was. But being able to identify that And you talk about full visibility, and for me, the way I explain that to people is historically we would, let's go back to 2014, 2015. We had a customer that paid BTA to come in and analyze their top 30 revenue generating applications. And at the time, there wasn't a tool like tetration in the market. There were lots of NetFlow and topology mapping kind of activities. And we were literally having to write code to extract NetFlow data, which is a sample of data. It's not every packet of every flow. And then stuff that into a database so that we could index it and build maps and actually go and have these very deep and detailed conversations with app developers. And they would say, "Oh, well, that's not happening." Or, "Well, yes, it is. Here you go. We're showing you."
Yeah, guys always say nothing's happening.
and now, when we're doing CSW POVs, we have a similar conversation. It doesn't take us months to get to that policy. It takes us a couple of weeks, 3-4 weeks, just so we can see everything. But we can show them that, hey, somebody from the NOC is surfing the web from a production web server, so that they don't have to go through web filtering, or you've got Telnet open on this host and it's communicating to someplace in China or Russia, or we've seen some data exfiltration. These are because you look at every packet of every flow, and source and destination, and we can, we're leveraging all that great data that Cisco collects not only for tetration, but through the SecureX platform and all the intelligence data that comes into there. We're able to identify bad actors very quickly in tetration. So great stuff.
I know we joked about a little bit with the app developers and security, but that's always a huge chasm when we go in to talk to clients. I know you know this better than I do, is that our applications are fine, they're doing everything we want them to do, they are working, but are they really secure, and are they meeting the right policy?
Oh yeah.
And you just brought up there some of the things about different, maybe speaking to someone in China or looking at some bad services or destinations. I know you've done this with a lot of the clients we've worked with. Think about that. I do. I think about that from an immediate time to value, right? I put this thing in, it's immediately looking at data. Well, guess what? I don't want anybody communicating this stuff in China. I don't want to expose ports on this particular application to the internet. And that's before I've even gotten really granular and maybe even went app by app, when and if I get there. Yeah. But to really do that kind of enterprise-wide segmentation and provide immediate value is so powerful, Ken. I know you've done this a lot.
Yeah, no, and and that's the power of what you get with CSW. It's immediate visibility, the ability to start deploying some policies. We see a lot of, hey, let's lock down RDP or let's lock down Active Directory sooner rather than later. Those are some highly exploited pieces of code in general, and it kind of is what it is. But the point is, I think one of the points I want to drive home here is everybody's needs are probably about 80 to 90% the same, and about 10 to 20% industry specific, company specific. These core fundamental things, to get these in place, and you've got to do it incrementally. You got to do the baseline stuff right the first.
You got to crawl, walk, run, right? I mean, you can't just try to do it all at once.
Yeah, and we talk about what kind of things do we want to protect. It's all workloads, or in the case of an IoT environment, maybe it's all the manufacturing devices on the floor. Now
you and I talked about that, Ken. That's a pretty intriguing use case that is not what I would consider quote unquote normal, yet it was extremely valuable to this customer, and I could see it being scaled across multiple industries that are doing IoT.
Yeah, it's the customer here was a manufacturing customer. They had about 30 manufacturing processes that they needed to protect, and all of the equipment on the floor didn't have an embedded operating system that we could deploy an agent to. So we used another Cisco tool, RSpan, and it's an industry tool. Everybody has RSpan now at this point. And for those that aren't familiar with what RSpan is, it's basically we can take a mirror copy of all the traffic in a VLAN and send it to a destination. And in this case, the destination was tetration. The SaaS instance in the cloud, we'd send that data in there. We would let tetration analyze the data because we're seeing all the communication. And then we would do a policy review, just like we would for an agent-based deployment. And then based on that policy review and analysis and investigation that we do with the customer iteratively and do it multiple times, and then we would give them data back that they could then go deploy firewall rules to.
I mean, that's really cool to me, because I know I've done this platform for a while, and I think obviously the most powerful data, the most granular data, is the data that we get from the actual operating system where that little bitty lightweight agent resides. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we can take in a lot of different data sources. You just said it, right? I could take in ER span. I could take in data from load balancers. So all these native type of data sources that are in my environment have varying degrees of value. But when I combine all of them, that means I get everything. I get the entire application and all the things associated with it, which I think is my thing. When I look across the competitive kind of landscape, the way we look at policy, it gets me kind of excited, Ken, if you can't tell, right? But the way we look at policy is so different, right? I mean, if my old friend Guest was here, and he's not, but he made a joke that, anybody with a garage and a dog can do enforcement, but the policy and managing the policy life cycle, that's the key.
Policy is huge.
Platform with your services, we've automated the whole thing. You built in reports into it. You do things like your advisory services. I don't know if you want to touch on that at some point. But these things really dovetail together to give the entire client experience.
Yeah, and we talk about services. You talked about we meet customers where they are, and that's really when I talk to somebody about engaging with BTA. That's the first thing we talk about is, do you need training? And 99 times out of 100, the answer is yes, because they know what they think they know. They don't know what they don't know. So we always try to start with training. But then whether it's a project, a focused project where we're doing some mentoring and enablement, or a managed service where we're fully managing it, or something in between, and that's what we call our advisory services, where we've done some kind of an engagement for the customer, and it takes time to operationalize things. You don't do this overnight. Sometimes
that's the key. That's like my favorite word. Sometimes it takes 6 months. If I can't operationalize this in my environment, then it's not part of my key business process, and I'm not realizing the full value. So when I think of the different degrees of services and like the advisory services, that takes this platform and operationalizes it into your business, whatever those requirements are.
Yeah, and that's the goal, is because customers shouldn't buy technology just to buy technology. Customers should buy something because it has an impact on their business.
That's right.
And right now, everybody's business is being impacted by cyber threat actors, compliance. Something stupid will happen. I was having a really interesting conversation with a CIO, and he's like, "Well, I think I should focus more energy on my endpoint, my end users." I was like, "Well, you've had virus protection on your end users. You've had malware protection on your end users. You're scrubbing their DNS." And people still find a way to do something stupid that compromises your data. And that's the key here, is that workloads are where the data lives, or those applications are accessing data. So if they are vulnerable, your data is vulnerable.
Well, and Ken, even you guys have done this before, as you mentioned the endpoint. What about tying endpoint policy back to the application itself that says, hey, this particular group, this test dev group, can only touch test dev applications. This finance group can only touch finance applications, and we will prohibit anybody else from doing that. Yeah. So now we protect it from the inside out of the app, and we're doing some endpoint protection, and we tie all the policy together. I mean, that's some really cool stuff.
Yeah, and that's where we have, I like to say this is where we have the architecture conversation, because secure workload is a component of a zero trust architecture. Right. And, Cisco's got an end-to-end architecture. Some customers are all in on that. Some aren't, and they'll select pieces from different places. But the point is that you've got to have an architecture, and you've got to have a vision and a really clear definition of what are the business metrics that you're trying to achieve with this. And and
it's not technology for technology's sake, as much as I like to get on that, and you do too. But how's it solving my business problem, right?
Yeah, exactly. It comes down to, how do you solve a business problem? And I was just going to say that, we had some talking points today, guys, and we organically, really went on some great, a great conversation about all this. But what it really comes down to is the business problems.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Well, hey, we're at about 20 minutes, and we try to keep these around 20-ish minutes. But Jen, are there any questions from the audience before we?
You want me to talk for another 30 minutes on this? I can do it.
So we do have.
It's not a matter of what we can talk about; it's a matter of what people will watch.
That's right.
I know, right? So one of the questions is, can it work both on-prem and within multiple cloud, Google Cloud, Azure, AWS, and even Kubernetes?
Yeah, the short answer is yes, and that's the beauty of doing protection of the workload at the workload level.
That's right.
Doesn't matter if there's an operating system that Cisco supports with CSW, we can deploy it, whether it's on-prem in Google, AWS, wherever, and containers is supported by Cisco, so we can deploy a containers-based agent and provide the same level of visibility.
I love the agnostic nature of that, Ken, and then the portability of the policy. You move your application from OCI to Google Cloud to what we don't care, right? To your point, we're inside the workload, we're inside the app, we're portable.
We did an enforcement for a customer's Exadata environment, which nobody thought we could do. And that's Exadata is a massive Oracle platform that does. It's a data lake, and we deployed a security policy to protect that data for that customer. So we're very comfortable with the super big apps, or hey, there's some pretty standard ones that we know how to just here's your basic policy. Let's go.
Yep.
Cool. Jen, any other questions from the audience?
No, I think we're good on that. I just want to let you guys know if you have any questions for BTA about Zero Trust or anything about, Cisco Secure Workload Tetration, anything about workload protection, we're there for you, and we can certainly answer any of those questions. You can reach out to myself or Ken or Chris, reach out to us on Teams. I'm going to drop a link in the comments that you can access and communicate with us that way, or reach out on LinkedIn. We're always there.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Cheers.
Thanks. Y'all have a good day.
Guys, okay.